So this is going to be the 6th video in a series about how to start a food forest native pollinator plant installation garden, and this video could totally stand on its own. So what we're going to be covering in this video is, and there's different ways to look at it. You could call it mindset, you could call it energetic work, your energetic vibration. You could say it's kind of similar to the law of attraction, or it could literally just be your mindset. So there's different ways to look at this. Is it a spiritual thing that's going on, where your energetic reality is dictating from the inside to the outside what you're experiencing? Or is it as simple as, if you have the right mindset, your winner effect is going to be turned on. You're going to be looking for things with the mindset that you can really do them, and you're not going to self-sabotage yourself. Whereas if this is something you're forcing yourself to do, but you don't really believe it's going to happen, you might just self-sabotage yourself. So these are different angles we can look at it, and we're going to be covering all this in the video. But first, just a little bit about how this relates to the rest of the series. You could be doing everything else you need to be doing to start any kind of business, to do any kind of project, but if you don't have this under control, you're either going to self-sabotage or you're just not going to be in that reality. However you want to think about it, it's not going to work out. You can do everything right, but the thing is, you're not going to actually be doing everything right, and you're not going to be able to see that if you don't have this handled. On the other side of the coin, you can just have this handled, and that's not going to make everything else work out for you if you're not doing the things you need to do in the external world. We're going to be talking about reality transurfing. Reality transurfing integrates that in and talks about how you need to actually be taking the action as part of this process, how it's all interrelated. But the thing is, if you get this handled, you're going to be a lot more likely to be able to actually go and do the things you need to do. So it's not going to just magically manifest the reality you want by doing this, but it's going to actually make it so you maybe go do the thing you need to do and you don't have a bunch of inner resistance to it. It's going to be a lot more likely to just happen on its own. You're not going to have to force yourself every day to do the things you need to do. So overall, for the type of things we're going to be talking about in this video, I'm going to be explaining my own understanding, but there's a lot of things you could look into. Starting first with the law of attraction. That is super popular, super well known, and maybe you know about that. That'll give you some background. I would actually caution you against going and learning stuff about the law of attraction for a couple of reasons. Number one, because the concept is so well known, it has been so watered down, there's so many people out there teaching it, teaching manifestation, teaching the LOA, that aren't doing a very good job. Just because there's so many people out there, just because there's so much of a market for it, and it's so easy to market, there's a lot of bad information. There's a lot of information that just isn't at the level it needs to be. It's not necessarily that it's all wrong, but it could be very simple, very surface level, and it's not going to do everything you need it to do. Another point on that, the actual movie, The Secret, that the law of attraction is about, it was originally going to have a lot of other teachers in it that they took out. They took out like basically the best teachers that they were going to interview in the movie. They watered it down. They made it look like this magic pill thing. They made it a lot more simplistic. They really took the spiritual depth out of it, the energetic depth out of it. They really took all the depth out of it to make it a mainstream movie. So anything like that, just because it's mainstream doesn't mean it's bad, but there's a lot of factors going into this that make it so you might want to be cautious about learning about the law of attraction. Next, one book that I actually was going to make an entire series on, Reality Transurfing, is really great. It covers these concepts in a lot of depth. However, it is just one perspective, one lens. It can almost be too in-depth, too technical, that you don't know what to do with it. Another book, Think and Grow Rich, is really great. What does Think and Grow Rich leave out? For example, it doesn't tell you a lot about how to actually do the exercises in some parts. Some things it does, like it doesn't tell you how to do sexual transmutation, it just tells you that you should do it. But it does have a really concrete exercise on visualization and how to do visualization. So that's a really concrete, to the point technique. However, one thing that I would say that it kind of contradicts with in terms of visualization with reality transurfing is the fact that Think and Grow Rich will tell you to visualize money, to focus on money. For a lot of people, what reality transurfing would say is that you don't actually want money. In order to visualize a thing properly, you need to tap into your heart. And a lot of people's hearts don't really want money. Although that can be a thing that gets them to where they want to be. A lot of the times, maybe they just want to spend more time in nature. They want to travel. They want to be able to buy healthy food. Whatever it is for you, I don't know. But you should focus on the thing you actually want and not go into this logical headspace of, oh, I need money to get that. Oh, money will get me these 3 things that are important to me. You need to focus on the things that will bring you to tears. So when you're doing visualization properly, whatever method you're using, whatever technique you're using, you are doing something that should tap into your heart and should almost bring you to tears. Over time, as you do visualization, and a lot of what we're going to be talking about in this video is visualization. That's a technique. There's different forms of it, but that is a technique that you can use to get this part of your mind sorted out, to get this energetic part of your mind sorted out. So yeah, back on that thread. Whether you're doing visualization from Think and Grow Rich, whether you're doing techniques from reality transurfing, whatever it is, ultimately you want to mix these things together. I've done a lot of research on this because it's so important, and I ultimately just know how to do it without following one specific technique now. So when you visualize something, you're supposed to be tapping into the deepest part of what you want, your deepest desires. You should really get connected to your heart. It should be something where you visualize this reality, whatever it is that you want to do. And also that can include who you are in the process. When I visualize what I'm doing as far as farming and gardening in the next 10, 20 years, a lot of it is the type of person I'm becoming that really connects to my heart, because it's not something I can control, how much I succeed, how much it affects the world, what actually happens. A lot of that stuff is outside my control, but I can at least try my best and do everything I can to get towards that. And ultimately, that's something that's in the archetype of The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell that resonates with our collective unconscious, because it's an archetype of our collective unconscious. So anyways, you do your visualization, whatever technique, what you're doing is you're connecting to these deep motivations. And when you start off visualizing, it can be really simple. It can be as simple as connecting to the part of you that wants to have a certain type of relationship, a certain type of lifestyle. You can just be thinking about waking up every morning. Maybe you're out in nature. Maybe you live away from the city and you have a little farm and you just walk yourself through that process. I wake up, there's birds everywhere. I get in my sauna. I do this, I do that, whatever it is. Maybe you just want to be able to go to a nice restaurant. Maybe you're just super money-oriented. Not money-oriented, but super materialistic. And you just visualize that and you feel the good emotions. You're like, oh, that's exciting, that's awesome. Over time, as you do this every day, your visualization gets more and more potent. You're able to tap into deeper and deeper things. As you live your life, you actually discover what things you really care about more. Visualization is a good way to do that because you'll notice when things tap into your heart. But ultimately, a really good way to do that is to go out and live your life and then see what things actually connect to you, what things are working, what things aren't. Because, visualization, it's like, it is precise in that sense, but you can be just visualizing something with a few details different. You're going down a slightly different path, and you don't know what to change until you'll go out and start going down that path, and you're like, oh, this is actually what really connects to my heart. And then you go visualize that and you're like, oh yeah, okay, that is definitely what I actually want. And so you're just like this heat-seeking missile. Another book you should read, Psycho-Cybernetics. That's a really great book. There's all these different perspectives that you can connect together. And so I would recommend, if you want to get into this, Reality Transurfing goes really deep. Really good book. Psycho-Cybernetics is a classic. Think and Grow Rich, really good book. Many different perspectives. And also Power versus Force, or Levels of Energy. Are going to talk more about the energetic realities of how your inner energetic world will just attract a world that matches that energetic level. So anyways, wrapping up this thread, when you do your visualization practice, you're getting deeper and deeper in touch with this highest version of yourself, with what your heart wants. When you do that, what's going to happen is that you're going to bring up all the limiting beliefs that are associated with that level. So you do this practice, it snaps you into this reality, this energetic reality. You're feeling the emotions, and this is a key, no matter what practice you're doing, you're feeling the emotions, not just doing things logically. The only reason you're thinking through a day in this life is to bring up those emotions. The literal thoughts are less powerful. They're pretty powerless unless they're connected to an emotional signature. That's how you get this practice to really work energetically. So you brain up that energetic reality, you tap into that emotional signature, and what that's going to immediately do is brain up the limiting beliefs that are associated to that reality. So let's say you do it, you pump your inner reality up to a certain level, you feel amazing, you're tapping into these energetic vibrations, these emotions of something that you don't have yet, but you're basically feeling it now. In order to actually get something in the external world, you have to realize that those emotions that you want to get from that thing, you can actually trigger within yourself. And then once you trigger those emotions within yourself, you're much more able to actually go get that thing without coming from a place of neediness. And so you do that, what's immediately going to happen is you're going to have your inertia bring you back down. You're going to have all these limiting beliefs come up. Maybe you have a visualization of this life you want to live. You feel amazing. 5 minutes later, you're going to start to have all this fear about maybe it's money, maybe about your skill level, maybe it's about your ability to have the type of whatever it is, lifestyle, relationships, spiritual connection, whatever it is that you want to visualize, you're going to have all these limiting beliefs come in. And so that's a really good way to work through limiting beliefs at a deep subconscious level, is to do this practice and take that as an opportunity to work through those. That's going to help you integrate this visualization, energetic reality into a more baseline state. So that's what's going to happen. Over time you do this. In order to deal with those limiting beliefs, there's no simple way. You want to attack it from the logical level. You want to actually understand what is going on. And a lot of people are so stuck in their limiting beliefs that they really, really believe them. So you have to just logically talk yourself out of it and restructure your logical mental framework. Beyond that, you have to get down to the more emotional, fear-based mental framework. And in order to do that, just keep going through this process. Also, just getting reference experiences that show you that that's not the case is going to be helpful. So yeah, you visualize, you work through that energetic fluctuation. And yeah, what do we want to talk about next? So yeah, that's that. That's pretty much the practice you want to do. Yeah, literally skip forward 20 seconds if you're watching this. We're just going to think about what's next. Yeah, maybe we'll leave it there for now. So that's pretty much the video. That's just an introduction. I might make more videos about this, but overall, if you're going to be doing anything like this, you need to have this part of your brain handled. If you don't have this handled, you're just going to be constantly self-sabotaging. Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about next. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is the distinction between the mindset and the energetic reality. So like I said, books like Levels of Energy, Power versus Force are going to talk about the energetic reality of this. And so what does that mean? The energetic perspective is that you have an internal state of mind. Let's say you're going through your life in a state of fear. You're afraid about what you want to do. Let's say in this example, you're afraid about your career and you want to do whatever type of business. Let's say you're watching this as part of the series. You want to start a garden business. You have this fear-based thing going on every day where you're worried about it. What that's going to do is attract a reality aligned with that energetic vibration of fear. It's going to be a negative one. Things are constantly going to go wrong. You're going to self-sabotage, or they're just going to manifest in that way because of your energy. There doesn't need to be a linked cause. It can simply be that reality is energetic, and when you're constantly radiating this energy field, that's what's going to happen around you. From the perspective of reality transurfing, they talk about how basically the same thing. Just it's not from a perspective of levels of energy, but whatever thoughts you're thinking about. Let's say you're thinking about, oh, if I don't get this figured out, I'm going to run out of money, I'm going to have to work a job I hate. Then you're going to basically move towards that alternative reality. You're basically visualizing and creating this alternative reality. So the point is that it doesn't really matter if you think about it energetically or from a very mindset state. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. Another thing about this is, let's say you're in a really high energetic state. You're in a state of gratitude, love, joy, and you're thinking about how amazing all these things are. You're super excited. You're coming from that state, which is really hard to do because all our human needs really bring us back down to fear a lot of the time. If you're not actually in a state of external abundance, it can be really hard to get there internally. However, Even people who are there externally are just constantly in a state of fear oftentimes that they're going to lose it all. So you need to master this part of your internal reality and get to that state internally. And the idea is that when you do that, your external reality is just going to match that. There's this book, The Kabbalion. Over time, your external reality will just match your internal reality. It's one of the Hermetic principles. So that's one perspective on it. Now, the other perspective is just more mindset, that we have these self-sabotage mechanisms, that we have things like the winner effect. And when you get this part of your mental psychology right, it's going to allow you to take better actions that just give you a better shot of getting to the reality you want. Now, what is the difference between these perspectives? Ultimately, what I think is that, and this is just my perspective, is that this is reality. Reality is your first-person actual phenomenological experience, the actual structure of these thought patterns, these conceptual ideas that you're using to understand this. It doesn't matter if you're thinking about things in terms of the energy or in terms of a material world and mental psychology and brain patterns, or just energetic vibrations that create this illusion of a mind and a body and an external physical world that has certain limitations. It doesn't actually matter. Actually, at the deepest structure of both those things, all that's going on is you have mental concepts, mental structures in your head. You're not actually able to access that material reality. At the same time, you're actually also not able to access that energetic reality. You're just able to access actual reality, actual first-person reality, and then you'll go and think about it conceptually. Now, both of these models, what matters is that they actually work. It doesn't matter if they're true, because what does that even mean? How do we know if something is true? That's just kind of an illusion. That's something we're creating. We say that if a model matches up with how reality works, we think that it's true. So all I'm saying is here is just leave it at that. These models accurately describe how reality works. And I would say, in my experience, I think both of these models accurately describe how reality works. In levels of energy, it says that when you're at a certain level of energy, you're much more likely to experience a bunch of synchronicities related to this kind of thing. So maybe you're in this really positive state of gratitude, of positive visualization. You meet the right person that helps you make this happen. Maybe that can happen. Or maybe it's just a mindset thing. So it doesn't really matter. If you want to just think about this, if one of these models matches up with your worldview and what you feel comfortable with, that's fine. Think about it that way. But I would encourage you to be open-minded to both of these models, and at the same time to recognize that both of these models are super limited, and they're just models you're using to understand reality. They're not very real. And just go with them, work with them, see what you think. And yeah, I give you a lot of resources here. You can go check out some of those to learn more specific techniques. I would say Psycho-Cybernetics is really good, pretty short, pretty old. Reality Transurfing, I read the whole thing. It's a huge book, but definitely would recommend that. And then like Levels of Energy is good as well. But yeah, basically whatever it is, let's say you're using the Levels of Energy model. You have this state of fear down here. You have neutrality. You have willingness to do work. You have optimism. You have joy, gratitude. Basically what you're doing with this work is you're constantly training your mind. Let's say you do a daily visualization practice to just be able to access those mental, energetic realities more and more. And then as you create those new neural pathways or energetic patterns, you're getting that to be more of a baseline. And so when I started doing this, I realized that I had an insane amount of fear about anything related to money, pretty much constantly running in my mind. The only reason I was interested in this kind of thing, although of course I was interested in it for all the other reasons, but the real emotional drive for me was just coming from a state of fear. So ultimately over time what you're doing is restructuring your mind to go from the state of fear, these lower energetic vibrations, and to move up and break those mental patterns. And you can do this conceptually, you can do this emotionally. Basically you're just retraining your mind through visualization to go into better, and as you become more aware, you'll realize the extent to which you're in a constant state of fear, a constant state of whatever it is, and how hard it is to actually just go around with a constant state of gratitude, optimism, joy, and to engage with any kind of work or project from that kind of place. For me, I still find myself super caught up in fear, but now sometimes I'm able to tap into these states where I'm not coming from a place of fear, where I feel like everything is going to be fine, even if I don't get the external result, because it's the process, it's the inner alchemy that actually is the thing that's important. And no matter what, I'm doing the process, I'm changing as a result of that process. And yeah, that's another thing, a mental framework. For example, you take a mental framework. Maybe you are in this mental frame that I need to make this amount of money, I need to have this kind of business, I need to go become a gardener, and then everything will be good. Now, if you take that mental framework and you really believe it, it's really hard to come from a state of gratitude because you really don't know if that's going to work out. But then if you take the mental framework that what really matters is the inner alchemy of the soul. The hero's journey isn't, the archetype of the hero's journey isn't, the point isn't that you get the thing, that you get the Holy Grail. The real Holy Grail is who you become along the way. And so if you just reframe that mental pattern, you can take that, use that mental pattern, that conceptual framework to restructure your emotional responses, your energetic reality, to do both. And then maybe you can come from a place of feeling like no matter how things work out, I'm growing through this process. I'm going to do everything I can. And over time, and of course you want the result too at the same time. That's important as well. But that's just something you can do to kind of, in reality transurfing, they talk about removing the importance from things. If you're trying to visualize something and you think, I need that thing, and you feel like if you didn't have that thing, you're attaching a huge level of importance, you're putting a huge amount of energy onto needing that thing, and that's going to create what's called a balanced force. And so you need to be able to visualize these things, tap into the deepest desires of your heart, but at the same time, not be coming from this egoic place of attachment, from this place of clinging. That's not going to help you actually successfully get there. So it's kind of a paradox. I'm going to leave it at that. I've given you a bunch of resources if you want to explore these topics. But ultimately, the rest of this series is all going to be practical how-to videos about how to actually start a food forest, pollinator garden installation business. But if you don't have this part of your mindset, of your energetic reality down, you're going to go self-sabotage. You're going to go bury yourself in the garden and become fertilizer for the plants. You're going to go literally take a shit in the garden and then bury yourself next to the poop. And then the plants are going to grow out of you and no one's going to be weeding the garden. It's going to be a shit garden and you're not going to make any money out of it because you're buried underground. So that's the video. Peace.